Hey guys, welcome to my channel where we cover everything you need to learn to become a solid voice AI developer. My name is Quincy. I'm the founder of Good Looking AI, and in today's video, I'm going to guide you through on how to create an outbound lead qualification system. If you stay to the very end, you'll learn how to create a system that can follow up with leads instantly whenever a form on a website or an ad is submitted. And we'll achieve this by using the tech stack of Vapi for our voice AI assistant. We'll use make.com for our automation, and we'll use Tally to submit the forms. With that said, let's jump right into it. Okay, so before we start building out this solution, let's first look at the ideal type of person, a persona, that can benefit most out of this lead qualification system. Now, here we have a problem. So John has a small to mid-sized roofing company based out of Bloomington, Indiana. And he gets most of his business from referrals, but he's not meeting revenue goals despite having consistent clients. And John knows that he has some technological gaps for his roofing business, and he gets a lot of leads through his website that don't really go anywhere. And sometimes he even forgets to open up his email inbox for a while to find out that he has like 20 leads that submitted a form on his website. So the solution is we can automate the task of lead follow-up to potential customers who fill out the form on the website. Once the form is submitted, an AI assistant will call the lead within 5 minutes to qualify the lead and book them in for an appointment with John's team. And this ultimately will help John increase customer engagement and significantly help John reach his revenue goals. So now that we have a good idea of a use case for this lead qualification system, now let's look at the design. So the way it starts off is a form fill out will trigger out, and we'll use Tally for the form, and it will trigger to make.com, and we'll use an HTTP request so that we can initiate or trigger that outbound call where Vapi will call the lead. And then here we have two steps, or we have two options, two paths. Is answered. So if they don't answer, and then we're just gonna hang up and we're gonna log the call details. If they do answer, we're gonna give the lead context and thank them and ask them if they have a few moments of their time. If they say no, and then we'll ask for a time they would like a call back. If they say yes, and then we'll start going through the pre-qualification questions, such as what type of roof do they currently have, and then we'll store the response in a variable roof type. How old is your current roof? We'll store that response in a variable roof age, and so forth. And just kind of like go through a little bit more. So have you noticed any specific issues like leaks, missing shingles, or damages? And we'll store all these in variables. And just what this does is it organizes our workflow so we know exactly all the variables, all the data that we're going to be working with in order to create the solution. All right. And then at the end, so we're going to ask the lead, would you like to schedule a free inspection or a quote with one of our specialists? If they say no, and then we'll just state something like I understand and try to help them provide any resources, and then just inform them that we'll follow up to see if we can assist them later in the future. If they say yes, and then we'll coordinate a time and we'll store that in a preferred date time variable, and then we'll book the user in, and then we'll confirm with the customer. Now, I do want to state that this tutorial guide, I won't go into full depth on how to create the booking functionality. You can refer to my other videos, and I'll put a link below in the description so that you can implement that on top of the solution. And yeah, so for this guide, we'll primarily focus on how we can create a outbound lead qualification system with dynamic variables. And then also I just have here on the side all the variables that we're going to be working with. And yeah, so the whole outcome is we're going to call the lead, qualify the lead, try to book them in, and then we're going to log the call details. Now, next, I just want to go over like a good overview outline. So we have the form, and the data points that we're working with that is the username, the user email, user phone, and the service needed. And then that form data is going to get sent to a webhook. We'll use a Tally module on make.com so that we can trigger out this scenario. and then we'll run a time delay of 3 minutes, and then we will send a HTTP request to Vapi, and we'll go through Vapi's API documentation so we can see how to do that. And then once the call ends, we'll have analysis, and then we will trigger that to a webhook so that we can log the call details to our database, which in this case will be a Google Sheet. So that's just like a good high level view of what we're going to be building out today. I think it's really good to approach these solutions first, figuring out what the flow is, what data are we going to be working with, identify the problem, how the solution is going to help them with the problem. And this is a really good framework to approach these type of solutions that's just going to help you save a lot of time later on in the process when you start developing out the solution. So now with that said, let's jump over to Tally so that we can just look at how the form's set up and how we're going to make this whole thing work. Okay, so now I'm on tally.so. If you haven't used Tally before, it's a free platform where you can create custom forms. And what's really neat about this is they have a variety of templates that you can use so that you can speed up the form creation process, which I think is really cool. So if you haven't used Tally before, I'll provide a link below in the description so that you can access that link and start creating forms for free. Now, I ran ahead and already created a form just to save time. So I have this good looking roofing form, and the data that I'm collecting from the user, as I broke down in my FigJam file in the previous step, is I'm getting the first name, the last name, email, phone number, and the service that the user needs. And then I also added this checkbox: I consent to be contacted by an AI assistant for follow-up calls, appointment scheduling, or service-related communication. I understand that these calls may be automated and recorded for quality assurance purposes. The reason why you want to add this is because if you're in the US, there are strict policies and regulations in place in regards to outbound AI calling. So it's very important for you to understand the rules and regulations so that you don't get in trouble. So for sure, if you're in the US, you do need to have the lead or the user opt in to be able to be contacted by AI. So that's why I added this step in right here. Now, I'm using Tally for this guide for this video, but it may be different when you're building out the solution for a client. For example, it may be on a form that's on their website, or it may be a form that's on an ad, a Facebook ad or Instagram ad, whatever it may be, but the core concept is the same. We're gonna have some type of form where a user is going to input data, and that's going to trigger an event, and we'll use make.com. We'll do that in the next few steps, but just keep that in mind. It might not always look like this, where you're gonna be using Tally for the form intake, right? So now that we got this set up, go ahead and create your form by using the form templates, and customize it as you'd like. And then the next step is for us to jump into Vapi so that we can start setting up our AI assistant for this lead qualification system. Okay, now we're on Vapi. If you're new to this platform, it's a voice AI development platform that allows you to get voice AI assistants up fairly quickly. And if you're new to this platform, I provided a link below in the description so that you can click on it, create an account, and you'll get $10 of free credit so that you can create this AI assistant at no cost. If you have an account, perfect, log in and we'll get started. So what we're gonna wanna do is navigate to assistants, and then we're gonna click on create assistant. You're gonna name it whatever you want. We're gonna select blank template and then create assistant. Now, just to save time again, I already created my AI assistant, but I'll walk through all the points that I modified so that you can change it up on your end as well. So I have Alex, which is the lead qualification system, and just kind of walk through some of these components. So cost will be 9 cents per minute, which is really good. And then latency, we have around 700 milliseconds, which again is really good. Latency is going to be the lag between the user getting the response back from the AI. So we want to keep this as low as possible. And then for setting up the AI assistant, so the intro message, we're going to be using a dynamic variable, which we'll be getting from the form intake. And so we have, hey, this is Alex from Good Looking Roofing. Is this username? Is this John? Is this Adam? Is this Kate? Right? So that dynamic variable we're getting from make.com when we trigger this outbound call. And then here we have the system prompt. Now I provided the link below in the description so that you can copy and paste that system prompt in. And yeah, so go ahead and access that link and paste it in. We'll move forward. Now for the provider, we're using OpenAI. And then for the model, we're using the GPT 4.1 Nano, which is the fastest one currently, 250 milliseconds, which is really good. And it's only a penny per minute. And then no files, no knowledge base. Let's keep temperature at 0.5. And we'll also keep max tokens at 250. For a transcriber, just using DeepGram, Nova 3. And then for voice configuration, I'm going to be using Vapi.ai, but you can play around with that. 11 Labs sounds really good, so you can also use 11 Labs, whatever you want. Just explore with the different voice options. But for this guide, I'm just going to stick with Vapi's Elliot. And then additional configuration, I just set it to have the background sound of Office. And then for tools, for this guide, we're not going to be creating any tools. The only thing that we need this AI assistant to do is make the outbound call, which will be triggered through make.com, and then also log call details, which I'll break down how that works shortly. And then let's see. Now for the analysis, for the logging the call details, this is what I set it up with. So the prompt, you are an expert note taker. Summarize the call in 2 to 3 sentences if applicable. And then the structured data. So we're going to need to store the roof type, the roof age, the roof issue, all the variables that we defined in our workflow, in our FigJam file, in our first step. We're going to extract all that information from the call, from the call that the user provides us. So I have extract the roof type that the caller provided us for the roof type property, extract the roof age that the caller provided us for the roof age property, and so forth. So go ahead and pause it and put this into your structured data prompt. And then the next step is to just define the properties. So we have roof type, which is of type string, roof age, type string, roof issue, type string, estimated timeline, type string, is gathering competitor quotes, which is of type Boolean, and then appointment date time, which will be of type string. So once you have that, it should be set up good. And then the next thing is the messaging. So here we're going to add in a URL endpoint. So once we set up our make scenario, we're going to use a webhook, right? So the webhook is what we're going to be sending this structured data to. So all this data needs to go somewhere. It's going to be going to a webhook on make.com. And once we create that webhook, we'll be given a URL endpoint to where it should be sending the data to, kind of like an address. And we'll paste that in right here. And we'll do that as we move forward. And another thing that you're going to want to modify is server messages. So you're going to get a bunch of these different options added in. You're going to want to just delete all those by clicking the X, and then we only really need the end of call report. So at the end of the call, we only send the end of call report, which will be the summary, which will be this. So the summary, we also will get the extracted data and also the transcript. And yeah, so make sure that you have the server messages set up with the end of call report. And yeah, that should be pretty much it. Yeah, now the next step is for us to navigate to make.com so that we can start setting up our scenarios so that one, we can trigger the outbound call using dynamic variables to the lead. And then after we do that, and then we'll set up our scenario so that we can log the call details to our database, which in this case will just be a Google Sheet. Okay, now we're in make.com, If you're new to this platform, again, I provided a link below in the description so that you can sign up, create an account, and you'll be given 1,000 free monthly operation credits to use so that you can build out solutions at no cost and learn how to use this automation platform. It's really neat. You can easily integrate to over 2,000 different applications, I believe. And yeah, so we're going to create our first scenario so that we can watch for any form fill outs that we get. And once we do, and then we're going to trigger to Vapi to make the outbound call, and we're going to pass the data that we're getting from the form. So Make has a module for tally. So let's just go back. So if you're new to this platform, just kind of get you a little more familiarized. To create a scenario, we're going to click on create new scenario, and we're going to just name it. Let's name it lead qualification. And we're going to use the tally module. So just type in tally, and then we're going to watch new responses. So whenever a form is filled out, it's going to immediately get sent to this webhook, and then we're going to trigger the outbound call. All right, so let's first just create a webhook. We're going to create a connection, hit save, and it's going to take you to tally, and then you just got to authorize your account. Okay, so now it's connected. Now we just want to navigate and select the form ID, which is going to be the good looking roofing form. Hit save, and then hit save, and now we have our form connected. So now, just to test it out, make sure it's working well, I'm going to navigate to my form and see if we can send that data to this tally webhook here on make.com. Now, first, to run it, we can just right click it and then run this module only. And now it's just waiting for any form fill outs. So I'm going to navigate to the form and just run a simple test. Okay, so I just submitted a form and we can see that we're getting some data. So this right here is the payload. And if we navigate to the fields, we can see here that we're getting the data that we are submitting into the form. So we're getting the first name, the last name, the email, and then the phone number, and then the type of service that the user needs, which says full repair. So now the next step is for us to connect it to Vapi so that we can initiate the outbound call. Now, the way we're going to go about this is we're going to use a HTTP request. Now, if you're unfamiliar with like APIs and this HTTP stuff, I made an API guide. I'll put that video and a link down below in the description so that you can watch it, get more and more, get a better understanding of how APIs work, what's HTTP requests, how can we do it. It's just going to empower you to be able to integrate with various apps. That's just going to make you a more powerful voice AI developer. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use make an API key auth request. Now, the reason why we're going to be using this is because we want to keep our API key secure. Now, because we're going to be creating a call, we're going to need to have an authentication, which is an API key. Now, if you use like these other, for instance, if we use HTTP, you'll see a lot of video guides using make a request. Now, the thing is about this is if you're making an API request and you're providing your API key can be exposed in the headers, and you want to make sure that you keep it secure so that you're not exposing your keys, which should be kept secret. So I believe it's best practice to use make an API key auth request. And what this allows us to do is it allows us to create like this keychain. And what it's going to do is make is going to hide our API key so that we're not exposed to any vulnerabilities. So what we're going to do is first, let's jump into Vapi's documentation so that we can follow all the steps on how we can create a call. Hey guys, before we move forward, I want to ask a quick favor. If you've been finding any value out of this video so far, Please like, comment, and subscribe as it helps me grow my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. With that said, let's jump right back into it. Okay, now I am on Vapi's API reference, and what we're going to do essentially is we're going to create a call. So we can see right here that we're given this URL endpoint /call, and then also the method is of type post, because we're going to be sending data, which is going to be the user's name, the user's phone number, the service that they need, and yeah. And then if we look right here, we can see all the data that we need to provide in order to make this request. So the H right here, that's signifying the headers. So in the headers, we need to provide an authorization bearer token. Token's going to be the API key, which I'll show you how to get that soon. And then also in the headers, we need to provide content type of application JSON. And then the data, which is going to be the request body, we're going to be providing an object. So if you look right here, it says in the headers, we need the authorization, which is required. And then it's going to be bearer authentication of the form bearer space token, where the token is the auth token. And then the request, this endpoint expects an object. And this is some of the keys, some of the data in the object that we can provide. Now, what exactly is the object that we need to use in order to make this outbound call? Well, if we navigate to the documentation right here, and we go to assistance and then dynamic variables, we're going to be using this object right here so that we can initiate the call. So we need to provide the assistant ID, the variables that we're going to be passing to the assistant, which is going to be the username, the service needed, and so forth. We need the user's phone number so that Vapi can make the outbound call. And we also need a phone number ID, which we will set up and connect a phone number to our AI assistant so we can start making these outbound calls. So this is going to be very important in order for us to initiate this whole outbound call. Now, again, let's look at the API reference, create call. So now let's start setting up our HTTP module on make.com so that we can make this work. So if I go back to the HTTP module on make, now what we're going to do is going to click add, and I'm just going to give this a descriptive name. So let's say Vapi header API key. Now the reason why I'm adding header is because sometimes documentation is going to say, hey, you need to add the API key to the query parameters or the header. So I like to be descriptive, so I just know exactly where this key is going to be used. And then the key, so if we go back, it says bearer space token. So let's just copy this. And then going to just show this. And then this is where we need to paste in our API key. So I'm going to go back to my AI assistant and then go to, I believe it's org settings, API keys, and then you're going to copy this and then you're just going to paste it right here. Make sure that you have bearer space and then the API key. And then as we saw in the documentation, it's in the headers, and then also the name is authorization. And then hit create. So now we have our API key that will be added into the headers whenever we make this request, and make will keep our API key secure so we're not showing it, which is very important. Now the URL, this is going to be this URL endpoint right here. So we're going to copy this and we're going to paste it in right here. And then it's of type post. And again, if these different methods and the URL endpoint doesn't make sense, watch my API guide. It will just give you a better understanding of what's going on, and it's just very important that you understand how this is all working. So it's going to be of type post, and then in the headers we need to add in that content type. So if we see right here, we have this content type, Copy this. We're gonna paste that right here, and then it's application JSON. So we're gonna copy this and paste this in right here. Now, just to verify we got everything, so in the headers, we need the authorization, we added that, and then we also need the content type, we just added that, and then now we need the object. So, going to go back to the documentation, assistance, and then dynamic variables, and copy this object right here, and go back to make. Now, body type, it's gonna be raw, JSON, application JSON, and then the request content, which will be that object that we just copied from Vapi's documentation. Now, what we can do is we can map this data that we're getting from Tally, from the form, into our object that we're going to be sending over to Vapi to make this call. So the variable values, now we're going to want to modify this. So we need to provide the first name as a value. So let's just delete this and add in first name. And then this needs to be username. And then you want to make sure that your variables align with the prompt that you have for your AI assistant. So right here it says, is this username, which will be mapped to the first name that we're getting from the form. We also have this service needed, and I believe those are the main ones that we need to share with it. So we also need service needed, and it's important that you have a comma after the first key and value pair, and then you also need to make sure that you're using double quotes. If you use single quotes, it's not going to work, so just make sure that you're using double quotes and you're adding in commas before each key value pair that we're adding into this object. So service needed, we're going to map that to this, and then what else do we need? I believe those are the main ones that we need to pass over to Vapi. And then for the customer phone number, we're going to map that to the phone number from the form. And then also the phone number ID. So we're gonna need to go back to Vapi and set up a phone number and connect that to our AI assistant. But before we do that, let's also add in our assistant ID. So we can get that from right here. So copy this and then just paste that in right there. And now for the phone ID, what we're gonna do is go back to Vapi and go to phone numbers. Now, what's neat about Vapi is that you can get free phone numbers, but there are limitations for how many outbound calls you can do. So just keep that in mind. It's not ideal to use this. Like if you're gonna be building this type of solution for a client, it's best to use a telephony provider like Twilio. But for this video guide, for tutorial purposes, and for you to learn how to just make these type of solutions, Vapi phone numbers are good enough, just so you're reducing cost and just doing this for free, right? So you're gonna wanna click on create a phone number, and then free Vapi phone number, put in the area code, create it. It's gonna take like around a minute to activate it. I already have my phone number right here connected. So I have this phone number here, 619-833-2095, and I gave it a number, a phone number name, and then I also have it connected to the AI assistant Alex that we're creating here. And then let's see what else. So we're gonna copy this phone number ID and we're gonna paste this into the object right here. And that should be good to go. Okay, so next up, let's set up our scenario so that we can log the call details to Google Sheets. Now we're going to set up a new module. It's going to be a webhook, and we're gonna use a custom webhook. So this webhook is just gonna wait for any data that gets sent to this URL endpoint. Now we're going to create a webhook, and I'm just going to name this lead qual log details. And then let's hit save, and then we're going to be given this URL endpoint, and we're going to paste this into Vapi. So if I go back to Vapi right here, under analysis messaging, we're going to paste in that URL endpoint so it knows exactly where to send this structured data to that we have set up right here. So the roof type, roof age, roof issue is all going to be sent to this URL endpoint, this webhook here, right here. So just to make sure, we have 8UX, and in our AI assistant we have 8UX. Perfect. So let's hit save, and let's also make sure that we save it on make.com. And then we're going to connect that to a Google Sheets module, and we're going to add a row. And just to show you what I have for my Google Sheet that will act as the database in this guide is I have this webhooks sample database. We have created at, name, roof type, roof age, roof issues, estimated timeline, pretty much all the information that we broke down in this flow diagram right here. So all the data that we're going to be collecting on the call when we pre-qualify the lead. Okay. And then now let's go back to make, and let's select that Google Sheet. Okay, so I have the webhook sample database connected, and it's sheet 1. And then we can see that we're getting all the columns that is in our Google Sheet. And then now we just have to call, we have to fill out the form so that the AI assistant can trigger the outbound call. And then when we send the data, we can map the Google Sheet so that we can log all the details. So I'm just going to hit save for now. And then I'm going to run both of my scenarios and to fill out the form and test out the AI assistant. But first, what I'm going to do is just make sure that I am running my scenarios. So I'm going to save, and then I'm going to go back, and then I'm going to trigger this as on, and same thing with the other scenario. Okay, so my phone's ringing right here. Yep, this is him. How can I help you?
We filled out a form on our website. Do you have it now?
Yes, I do.
Great. Get started. Could you please tell me the address of the property you're interested in having work done on?
Yeah, it's on 123 Main Street, San Diego, California, 91911.
Thank you, Quincy. What type of roof do you currently have there?
It's a, I'm not too sure what kind of roof it is. What are the most common types of roofs?
No problem, Quincy. The most common types are asphalt shingles, metal, tile, or flat roof. Based on your property, do you happen to know which one it is?
Yeah, I actually have a tile.
Thanks for clarifying. How old is your current tile roof?
Maybe like 20 years.
Got it. Have you noticed any issues like leaks, missing shingles, or damage?
No damage, no leaks. I don't think I've noticed anything.
All right, that's good to hear. When are you hoping to start this project? Is it urgent or more of a keeper?
No, urgent. I would like it done as soon as possible.
Thanks for letting me know. You gathering multiple quotes? Soon, right?
I'm ready to move forward if the price is right.
Great. Based on what you shared, you're eligible for a free estimate with one of our roofing specialists. Would you like to schedule a free inspection or a quote?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So it's successfully working, and it was able to make the call. Now, as I mentioned, we're not going to set it up in a way to do the full booking, but it's good that it's working. So now let's just set up our log call detail scenario so that we can actually log the details to the Google Sheet. Okay, so to fully map out the data that we're getting from the call, which is the extracted data that we're sending to this webhook, instead of filling out another form to have the AI assistant call me again, I'm just going to use Postman, which is an API tool, so that we can manually send over the data and then map it out into the Google Sheet. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to view the call history. So if I go back and I go to the history, I can see that here we have the call. So I'm going to go to the details. I'm going to click on the number 1 on the webhook, and then I'm going to click this, download output bundles. Now I'm going to copy this whole thing, which is an object. So I'm going to copy this whole thing. It's being a little difficult. Let me scroll down to the very bottom. So starting with this closing squiggly bracket, and I'm just going to copy this, and then I'm going to go to Postman. Now, if you're new to Postman or don't know what it is, it's an API testing tool, which is very, very important to know how to use as a voice AI developer, so that you can conduct different testing, which is going to be very valuable. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to manually make an HTTP request to that webhook. So I'm going to click on this plus, and then I'm going to add into the body. I'm going to switch it to raw. I'm going to paste that in right here. And then I'm also going to paste in the webhook URL endpoint. So if I go back to diagram, I'm going to grab this URL endpoint, paste that right here, and this is going to be of type post because we're going to be sending data. Alright, so we have the URL endpoint, and we also have the message, pretty much the end of call report, we can see right here. And then we're going to just run this module only. So now this webhook is just going to wait for any data that gets sent to this URL endpoint. And then I'm just going to hit send. Okay, and you can see right here that we're getting the data that we're sending over from Postman. So we're using Postman as an API testing tool to send that data manually. And here we have the payload. So if we go into messages, and if we go into artifact, we can see we can access the full transcript. And then if we go into analysis, we're going to be given the call summary, and then also the structured data such as the roof age, the roof type, the roof issue. Now we can take that and map that into our Google Sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Google Sheet, and I'm going to map the data. So created at is going to be this started at. Now name, since we didn't actually set up a name variable inside our structured data, it's not going to pass the name. So right here, I'm just going to put Quincy, but ideally what we could have done is we could have added a structured data right here, property for the name, which I didn't do. So we're just going to actually just leave that blank for this scenario. And then roof type is going to be under analysis. So structured data, we have it right here. And then roof age is going to be this one. And then roof issues. And then estimated timeline is right here. Competitor quotes. We're going to put that right there. And then preferred date time, we're just going to leave that blank because it wasn't fully set up to do the booking. Right? And then the summary. So the summary is just going to be right here. So, and then also we got to add in the transcript, which is going to be under artifact. So let's select this one. All right, so now we're dynamically mapping the data in. We are missing the name. We're also missing the preferred date time because we haven't fully set up the booking, but that should be pretty much it. And now what we can do is we can just submit another form and have it call us again, and then have it fully run through both scenarios so we can log the call details. So that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so my phone's ringing. Yes, this is him. How can I help you?
Hi, Quincy. I saw you recently filled out a form on our website. Great. Are you available to chat now? I'd like to ask 2 questions of your project.
Yes, I'm free.
Please tell me the address.
Yeah, it's 123 Main Street, San Diego, California, 91191.
Thank you. And what type of roof do you currently have?
I have a tile roof.
Got it. How old is your current roof?
It's around like 20 years.
Thanks. Have you noticed any issues like leaks, shingles, or damage?
No issues.
All right. When are you hoping to start the project? Is it urgent or more of a project?
Urgent, looking to get it done as soon as possible.
Understood. Are you gathering multiple quotes or ready to move forward soon?
I'm not gathering multiple quotes, and yeah, I'm looking to move forward.
Thanks for sharing that. What you told me, you're eligible for a free estimate with one of our roofing specialists. Would you like to schedule a free inspection? Or
Let's schedule a free inspection, please. Okay, so we can see right here that it went through this scenario. Now let's check the sheet. And yeah, it looks like we got it right here. Now there are some things that we can do to improve the Google Sheet, such as like formatting the date better. And then also adding in the name into a structured data. And then also setting up the booking system. And I'll leave that as a challenge for you to try to implement the booking feature for this lead qualification system. But that's what I got. We're able to build a lead qualification outbound system so that we can call leads upon a form fill out. Hey guys, good job for making it to the very end of the video. Hopefully you're able to come out the other side with a better understanding of how to create these outbound lead qualification systems, how to use Vapi's API reference to create a call, and the best practices on how to use the HTTP modules on make.com to hide the API keys, and also how to log the call details to a Google Sheet. Now, a challenge I propose to you is how can you implement the booking feature into this lead qualification system? I'll provide a link below in the description to a previous video I've done on a guide on how to create a complete booking system so you can figure out how you can integrate the two to build an even more complex solution. With that said, hopefully you found value out of this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.